Hi everyone. Whenever I post a video that's a little bit more personal and introspective, it doesn't get half as many views as some of my others. So if you're not interested in seeing that, this is a heads up and you can stop watching now. If you are interested, then here it is. This is a film about feelings and photography. How you are feeling always influences what you create. And it's when you acknowledge how you feel and how you use that when creating your work that it has a greater impact on the result. I've always thought that inspiration was associated with positive and optimistic feelings, but I've recently realized that it's not always the case. The idea to produce something like this came after I'd had a night of very little sleep, and I was sat in a cafe feeling incredibly tired, and my mind had begun to wander, and I was thinking about all the things that have happened in the last few years. So I decided that I'll come down to the river and try and get some photographs, but mainly I just needed a walk to clear my head. But I found that what I was drawn to and what I was inspired to take images of were essentially representations of me, or how I felt during the time that my mum was sick. One of the first things I noticed when I got down here was actually a group of sticks that's just in the water down there. And I initially tried to make some sort of composition that included all of them and then some of them, but then I noticed one stick on its own. You could see a tiny proportion of the stick above the water, but most of it existed underneath the surface. And as stupid as it sounded, it really felt like that stick was summing up how I felt then at the time, but then also throughout the whole of my mum's sickness and after her death for a long time, and right up until this day sometimes. I was keeping most of myself and my feelings beneath the surface and out of plain view. And in the image that I took, it was overexposed, but that just added to the feeling that I had of isolation and being surrounded by a vast and expansive unknown. The second image that I went on to capture was of this marker buoy, and very similar to the first image, what appeared above the surface was solid and strong and reassuringly ordinary looking, albeit covered in shit. But what you see in the reflections was the reality for me, and it's distorted, chaotic and fragmented and without any solidity or strength in the slightest. But then the final image that I took was slightly different to the others. I was close to the shore of the river, and where it was shallow you could see pebbles and stones that formed a really solid foundation at the bottom part. And on top of those were some leaves which represented a bit of wisdom and time gone by. And then as you moved up the image, then it gradually gave way to a reflection of the sky, which for me feels like an unknown but bright future. Inspiration can come from many sources. It can come from the view itself that you see, it can come from magazines, it can come from going to an exhibition, and it can even come from photographers on YouTube. But sometimes inspiration comes from within, and it's not always from a bright and happy place. Don't get me wrong, just because the inspiration for these images came from a not so happy place doesn't mean there wasn't a positive outcome. What I felt was that by harnessing my feelings or by using them to drive what I was taking images of, that they took on a lot more meaning and significance, and I really feel that that was a step change in how I capture my images. And it's something that I want to use more so from here on in.